Let's take the working file sales data 2018 pivot and have a look at how having a pivot table makes it easy to format the pivot table. If that makes some kind of logical sense. A bit like the tables, Excel has already provided functionality for formatting pivot tables. As long as you click into the pivot table first, on the choice of pivot table tools, we have two sub-ribbons, Analyze, which we've been using, and then Design. Now, the Design sub-ribbon has a section called Pivot Table Styles. Current style applied to your pivot table will actually be highlighted with a grey box. You can see that one there. It's just got a grey box around it. Now we can expand this so we can see more, and we have a number of categories of styles. We have a light category, a medium category, and a dark category. You simply select the style that suits your data, and you can see as you move through them, applies the choice. That blue one's quite nice. Let's go with that one. Now, having made a selection of the style, you can then choose what you would like from that style, and there are 4 options here for removing or applying in the tick boxes. I already have a tick in row header. That's why the row header is different from the other rows. For example, let's go down and find one that is different on the left. These are different. See there that there's a slightly different color to the left hand side. So let's stick with one of those. So I've chosen to have the row headers, therefore the row headers are different. If I take that off, then they don't get distinguished. The column headers are chosen to be selected, so they're different. Again, if I turn that off, they don't look any different from the rest. I could have both of those on. I also have the option for banded rows, which means each row is a slightly different background. That makes it a little easier to read. So that's in place. And even banded columns, so every other column is a different color. Now that doesn't quite work in this style, so I'm going to turn those off, probably turn off row headers as well, which leaves me with a pivot table looking like that. Now if I change to a different style, like the dark blue one, then it remembers that I wanted banded rows, but this particular style option doesn't have banded rows within it. You can see it's all solid blue. That one does. So I have a light blue, dark blue. It has column headers. Does it have banded columns? Well, they have white lines between, which is quite useful. I'm going to leave that on. If I had row headers, that would probably make no effect. So you've got to look at what the style box offers to see which of the 4 actually will apply. In pretty much all cases, the column headers are different. You can see that they're usually bolder and darker all the way across, regardless of the style you choose. That green one, for example, too green. That one there, banded. Now, banded with a large amount of data does make it easier to follow across a line or down a column. So you make your choice. You choose your style from this drop-down box here, and then you choose what you would like from that style. So choice of row headers, column headers, banded rows or banded columns, assuming they are available in that style, and then you're left with your formatted pivot table. Should it then increase or decrease in size, only the rows used by the pivot table are formatted. You're not left with some green rows here with no data in if the data gets restricted by, for example, filtering. If I were to just choose a number of countries down here, you can see I'm still only presented with the style, but only on the pivot table. It doesn't leave all of these rows here, now no longer used, as alternate greens. So your formatting instructions are to the pivot table, regardless of its size. So you make those changes in design, color scheme chosen, selections chosen from here. If you want a fairly plain one, you can go for the top left hand side light, which is as plain as you can get. And if you take the ticks off, you're left with just the little borders around the outside. So you're in charge. You're completely in charge of the pivot table, and every single one of your pivot tables, even if they're in the same book, even if they're in the same sheet, can be formatted differently. This isn't a universal setting for all the pivot tables in a workbook. Each pivot table can be formatted differently.